Can anyone tell me why we have all these videos now of this helicopter flying into this plane and exploding over Washington, D.C. last night, but we don't have one video of a plane flying towards the Pentagon on 9/11 in the exact same place?
But from my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon.
The first footage that came out last night was from the Kennedy Center camera, where you can clearly see the bright lights of the plane coming onto the runway and the dimmer lights of the helicopter flying on a direct line right into it. We then got footage this morning from Washington, D.C. airport where you can see the crash even more clearly. Keep in mind, this crash happened at night. The Pentagon on 9/11 happened in broad daylight. The spot where this plane crash happened is nearly directly over top of the Pentagon. It's in the exact same place within about a quarter mile at most. 9/11 was in 2001, and for those of you that don't remember 2001, cameras actually existed in 2001. Videography and photography had actually been invented by 2001. It wasn't 1901, and there was actually footage of things going on in 2001, and there was certainly footage of what was going on in and around Washington, D.C., the most important place in the world, in 2001. But yet 23 years later, the only evidence we have of a plane hitting the Pentagon on 9/11 is this one quick, unclear video where you can tell nothing about what's going on. That's it. That's all the footage we ever got of a plane hitting the Pentagon on 9/11. All the security footage from all the hotels and any privately owned business that may have had an angle on it was seized directly afterwards, never to be heard from again. But don't worry, there was a CNN reporter who was on the scene within minutes of the explosion and told the nation exactly what he saw in a clip that would never be heard from on TV ever again.
The Pentagon, CNN's military affairs correspondent, Jamie McIntyre. And Jamie, you got very close to where that plane went down.
That's right, Judy. A while ago, I walked right up to next to the building. Firefighters were still trying to put out the blaze. The fire, by the way, is still burning in some parts of the Pentagon. And I took a look at the huge gaping hole that's in this sideway. But from my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon. The only site is the actual side of the building that's crashed in. And as I said, the only pieces left that you can see are small enough that you could pick up in your hand. There are no large tail sections, wing sections, fuselage, nothing like that anywhere around.
Subscribe and turn on notifications for the Matthews Report. I'm keeping my promise to cover things you won't hear anywhere else. Let me know if you've got proof of a plane hitting the Pentagon on 9/11. Let me know what you think about World Trade Center Tower 7, which was the third World Trade Center tower that collapsed on 9/11, didn't get hit by a plane, and more than 50% of the American public never even knew about it. Go back and watch the videos of the planes hitting the World Trade Center, and let me know if you can find one piece of footage that shows a logo of a United Airlines flight or an American Airlines flight on either of those planes. Check out the documentary Loose Change, which is one of the greatest investigative documentaries of all time about 9/11. And on your way out the door, check out this footage of Donald Trump on national TV on the day of 9/11, a man who knows more about New York skyscrapers than anybody, saying that there's no chance a commercial airline could have done that to those buildings.
The World Trade Center was always known as a very, very strong building. Don't forget, that took a big bomb in the basement. Now, the basement is the most vulnerable place because that's your foundation. And it withstood that. And I got to see that area about 3 or 4 days after it took place because one of my structural engineers actually took me for a tour because he did the building. And I said, I can't believe it. The building was standing solid and half of the columns were blown out. I mean, so this was an unbelievably powerful building. If you know anything about structure, it was one of the first buildings that was built from the outside. The steel, the reason the World Trade Center had such narrow windows is that in between all the windows, you had the steel on the outside. So you had the steel on the outside of the building. That's why when I first looked, and you had big, heavy I-beams. When I first looked at it, I couldn't believe it because there was a hole in the steel. And this is steel that was, you remember the width of the windows of the World Trade Center, folks. I think you know, if you were ever up there, they were quite narrow. And in between was this heavy steel. I said, how could a plane, even a 767 or 747 or whatever it might have been, how could it possibly go through the steel? I happen to think that they had not only a plane, but they had bombs that exploded almost simultaneously, because I just can't imagine anything being able to go through that wall. Most buildings are built with the steel is on the inside around the elevator shaft. This one was built from the outside, which is the strongest structure you can have. And it was almost just like a can of soup.